Hello, what is up, folks? My name is Melvin. Glad to see you here. Glad to see you doing exceptionally well on this place that we call the internet. Now, I want to talk about men and women, simply because, that dialogue has been really weird for a long time. Very, very weird conversation. Um, I think just ever since I can remember. Looking back to how I know things now, yeah, it's just extremely weird because it's just overall most of the arguments and conversation is tribalism. Now, what came to that me wanting to talk sorry. What came to that inspiration for me to talk about it was just like I think it was like a video called 0 to 100 who has it easier, men versus women. Now, it's a 6-year video. I totally understand that. But it's just like I feel like in today's society, just having that question is just really, really stupid and idiotic. Because that doesn't tell you the whole story at all. It doesn't really say anything. Because it's it's not a good question. Um, because that question feels personalized, but there's no way it can be. You know what I mean? So here's what I'm trying to say, because it is not an easy conversation to have. It's not a really easy question to answer. It depends on who you are, where you grew up in, etc. It requires a lot of other things. So the one thing that I think we should state: have women been underrepresented in society? Yes. Yes, 100% yes, 1,000% yes, 1,000,000% yes. Like they've just been underrepresented since society began. Um, the more powerful you are, strength wise, the more power you had. That was kind of ours. That was kind of how tribes and society was run for a very long time. So that definitely goes without saying. But here's why I know it's more nuanced. So I have family in the Dominican. I really don't know what it's like to live in the Dominican. I have family that lives in the Dominican. And yeah, I really don't know much. But then one day I just started talking to a family member, and she was giving, like, despite her positive attitude towards everything, towards the Dominican, towards family, towards life, she was just telling me just how hard. She was telling me a lot of stories that sucked, of fights, of sexual assault, abuse, rape, and all of that happening as she was a kid. So she was telling me this one story about how three boys kind of led her to like a place to like look at her underwear and touch her. And she didn't know it. Like, she was 8. She didn't really know what was going on. She like knew that she wasn't supposed to do this, but she kind of did it anyway. She was coerced. Um, and then someone found her, took her away from that situation, told, her dad, and then the dad ended up telling their dad, and then the dad of the three boys, they were whooped so hard. They were beaten up, attacked. Like they were lucky not to have died. It is just and it's just like I've never heard a story like that from when I grew up in the cities that I've grown up in. I've never heard of just such an uncomfortable story and for stuff to go through. So, yes, am I glad that I'm not a female in the Dominican? Yes, absolutely. Am I glad I'm a male not in the Dominican? Absolutely as well. I have I have heard stories of my so I've heard stories in the Dominican of one time a teacher threw a kid by the ear and ripped part of it off. Like, that is just such insane stories that I've never heard here. So when we ask that question, like who has it better, men or women, it again we're saying that from a personalized perspective, but in no way is that question personal. It's just in no way you are just generalizing heavily for the sake of tribalism, and I don't understand it. Doesn't make sense to me. Um, but that's why I think it's just important to learn about people, to learn their perspectives. Because, yeah, truth be told, when I heard, like in college, when I originally heard about the trans movement and things like that, or even in high school, when I started hearing about that, I didn't take it seriously. I didn't take their emotions seriously at all. If they said that they believed that they were born in the wrong body, I didn't take them seriously. I didn't care. I wasn't going to insult them in person, but I would have insulted them behind their back. I wouldn't have admitted that at all during that time. But now I feel like I can because I don't think I'm that person anymore. But yeah, there was a time where I just didn't understand their perspective. I'm trying to think when I started understanding it. Um, it's really just recently. Um, I think it's just because it doesn't matter what anyone thinks at all. So okay, I think I know what it is. I think saying that reminded me. So I'm just trying to think that if I was in that situation and if I felt really uncomfortable about something, anything. So let's just say I had a pebble in my shoe, or I felt like I had a pebble in my shoe, you know? Let's say the shoes that I'm wearing, I'm just like, God, just it feels like there's like something in there, you know? It just doesn't feel right. And then I have a bunch of people look at it, okay? And then a bunch of people are like, no, there's nothing in there. Like you're just thinking things. And I'm like, nah, like I'm wearing it, and I'm like, there's something. Like, would you just keep wearing that shoe? No, you would either change the shoes or change the sock. Like you would do something to feel better about it. That's just human nature. And I think we've lost a lot of individualism with this creation of society. So seeing people who are trying to share with the world how they are feeling, like they want to present themselves outward, how they're feeling inside, I think we need to see more of that. Um, we need that type of freedom. And yes, they have a right to say that they exist. They have a right. you know, it's just one of those interesting things. And then for me personally, I used to think that my Dominican heritage didn't mean too much. I used to think that, okay, like, yeah, I'm Dominican, but I grew up in Wisconsin, so like that's kind of more my identity. And that may be true, but I think there's a lot of things about my culture that because I was born in it, I should take some responsibility for it, learn about it, talk about it, share it, just for the sake of showing that there are different aspects of life out there. The stories that I have, the stories that my family has, the story that the country has itself. Um, I think sharing those stories would make the world better. So if you ever hang out with me in real life or talk to me in real life, yeah, I'll talk about my heritage more. I'll talk about myself more, just because I think that's important. I think sharing those aspects of life is definitely important. There would have been a time where you wouldn't want people to know that, share that because of the shade of my skin, I would either be treated better or worse. Like, we don't live in those times anymore, and I think that should be celebrated. That should be shared. You know, these accomplishments, all these things. Um, learning about people. That's the most important thing. That's the one thing I hope you can take out of this. Try to learn about as many people as you can. Thank you very much, folks, and have a wonderful day.